Welcome to the Honeyed Leaf, where every cup of tea comes with a story. I'm so glad you're here. If you enjoy gentle mysteries that help you sleep, please subscribe so you never miss a visit to Willowbrook. Tonight, we're returning to the peaceful village, where Clara Whitmore is about to find herself drawn into another gentle mystery. Before we begin, find a comfortable position, close your eyes if you'd like, and let yourself relax. There's nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to do. Just let the story carry you peacefully towards sleep. Now, let's visit Willowbrook together. Chapter 1. The star appears. The first week of December settled over Willowbrook with the quiet anticipation that comes before Christmas. Clara had decorated the honeyed leaf with evergreen garlands and white lights, creating a warm refuge from the winter cold. Her special Christmas tea blend filled the air with scents of cinnamon and orange. Everything felt peaceful and festive. On Monday morning, Clara arrived at the shop to find something unusual on her doorstep. A small wooden box, beautifully crafted, with a note attached. The note read simply, "For the community to share. Let it travel where it's needed." Clara brought the box inside and opened it carefully. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was the most exquisite Christmas star ornament Clara had ever seen. It was vintage, probably from the 1950s or 60s, made of silvered glass with delicate painted details. 8 points radiated from the centre, each tipped with tiny glass beads that caught the light. It was clearly handmade, clearly precious. Also in the box was a piece of sheet music. Not a photocopy, but original sheet music, yellowed with age, for a carol Clara didn't recognise. The title read, "Star of Wonder, Star of Light," and the composer was listed as anonymous, 1898. Below the title, someone had written in elegant script, "Sung by the Willowbrook Choir, 1955. Clara held the star up to the morning light. It sparkled beautifully, casting tiny rainbow reflections around the room. Who had left this? And what did they mean by, "Let it travel where it's needed"? She set the star in a place of honour on the mantel and placed the sheet music beside it. When Mrs. Pembroke arrived for her morning tea, she gasped when she saw the star. "Oh my goodness, that's Margaret Finch's star. I'd recognise it anywhere." "Margaret Finch?" Clara asked. "Who was she?" Mrs. Pembroke sat down, looking at the ornament with obvious emotion. "She was our music teacher and choir director for over 40 years. She passed away last spring. Lovely woman, tremendously talented. She made that star herself in the 1950s when she first started teaching here. It always topped her Christmas tree, and she'd bring it to choir rehearsals during December. Said it reminded her why she loved music and teaching." "It's beautiful," Clara said. "It is. Margaret was an extraordinary person. She taught music to generations of Willowbrook children. Everyone who went through the village school learned to sing from her. She had a gift for finding the music in people, even those who thought they couldn't carry a tune." Mrs. Pembroke studied the sheet music. "And this carol, I remember it. Margaret collected rare carols, obscure ones that most people had never heard. She'd teach us one new carol each Christmas season. This one was particularly beautiful. We performed it in 1955. I was 12 years old. I can still remember the harmonies." "Do you know who might have left these here?" Clara asked. Mrs. Pembroke shook her head. "Margaret had no children, but she had hundreds of students over the years. It could be any of them. Though why they'd leave it anonymously, and why they'd say to let it travel, I don't know." Throughout the day, other customers who had known Margaret noticed the star and shared their memories. Old Tom Fletcher remembered Margaret teaching him to sing bass parts for the church choir. Emma from the bookshop recalled Margaret encouraging her love of poetry through songs. Beatrice spoke of Margaret's patience with children who struggled. A picture emerged of a woman who had shaped the village through music and kindness. That evening, as Clara was closing the shop, Reverend Peters stopped by. He saw the star immediately. "Margaret's star," he said softly. "I wondered what happened to it after she passed. Her cottage was cleared by distant relatives who didn't know the village. I worried her things had been sold off or discarded. Someone left it here this morning," Clara explained, "with this sheet music and a note saying to let it travel where it's needed." Reverend Peters examined the note and the music. "How curious, and how like Margaret's students to do something like this. She inspired tremendous loyalty and love. Many of her former students still live in the village. Do you have any idea who might have left it? I don't, but I appreciate the sentiment. Margaret's star travelling through the village, bringing her memory with it. It's beautiful. He paused. You know, we're preparing for our Christmas Eve service. We always do a carol sing. Perhaps we could perform this carol in Margaret's honour. I think that would be lovely, Clara said. I'll make sure the music gets to you. After Reverend Peters left, Clara sat with the star, thinking about Margaret Finch, this woman she'd never met, who had clearly meant so much to so many people. The star seemed to glow in the lamplight, as if it held something of Margaret's spirit. The next morning, Tuesday, Clara arrived to find the star gone. In its place was a note. The star has travelled to its next destination. Thank you for keeping it safe. Clara was surprised and a bit disappointed. She'd hoped to learn more about who was moving it and why, but clearly this was part of the plan. That afternoon, Eleanor Hartwell stopped by for tea. Clara, the most extraordinary thing happened. This morning I found a beautiful vintage star ornament outside the library, along with sheet music for an old carol. There was a note saying it was travelling through the village and should stay with me for the day. Clara smiled. It was here yesterday, on my doorstep Monday morning. It's Margaret Finch's star. Mrs. Pembroke recognised it. Eleanor's eyes widened. Margaret's star? Of course, I should have known. And the carol, let me guess, something rare and beautiful that Margaret collected. Exactly. From 1898, apparently performed by the choir in 1955. How wonderful. Margaret taught me to love music. I wasn't a particularly talented singer, but she made me feel that my voice mattered, that adding my sound to the choir was valuable. She had a gift for that, making everyone feel their contribution was important. Do you have the star with you? Clara asked. No, I left it at the library. The note said to keep it for the day, then pass it to the next location. I'm not sure where that is, but I assume whoever is orchestrating this will collect it. So someone is moving it from place to place? Clara mused. Each location gets it for a day with the sheet music. It seems that way. I wonder how many stops it will make, Eleanor said. And who's deciding where it goes? Students of Margaret's, perhaps, Clara suggested. People she taught, wanting to honour her memory by sharing her star through the village. That would be like her students, Eleanor agreed. She inspired such devotion. Wednesday morning, Clara learned the star had moved again. Beatrice came into the shop excited. Clara, you'll never guess what I found at the community centre this morning. Margaret Finch's star ornament and the most beautiful sheet music for a carol I'd never heard before. There was a note saying it was travelling, and to keep it for the day. It's making its way around the village, Clara explained. It was here Monday, at the library Tuesday, and now with you. How marvellous, Beatrice said. Margaret would love this, her star visiting all the places she cared about. She taught aerobics at the community centre for years, you know. After she retired from formal teaching, she believed everyone should move and sing, said it was good for the body and soul. She'd play piano and we'd exercise to music. She was in her 70s then, full of energy and joy. Throughout the day, people came into the honeyed leaf talking about the travelling star. The mystery had captured the village's imagination. Who was moving it? Where would it go next? Why were they doing this? But everyone agreed it was a beautiful tribute to Margaret. Thursday, the star appeared at the village school. The current music teacher, a young woman named Sarah Chen, found it outside her classroom with the now familiar note and sheet music. She brought it to the honeyed leaf at lunch. Mrs. Pembroke told me to come see you, Sarah said. She said you'd know about this star. Clara explained what she knew. Sarah looked at the ornament with wonder. I never met Margaret Finch. She died just before I moved here to take the music position, but everyone talks about her. The teachers, the parents, the older students who remember her. They say she was extraordinary, that she made music come alive. I feel like I'm walking in very large shoes, trying to continue what she built. I'm sure you're doing wonderfully, Clara said gently. The star being left for you seems significant. Whoever is moving it wanted you to have it, wanted you to feel connected to Margaret's legacy. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. That means a lot. I've been struggling with confidence, wondering if I'm good enough to teach here, to honour what Margaret created. This feels like a blessing, like she's welcoming me. Friday, the star appeared at Midnight Baker. Lily found it outside her shop with the note and music. She came to the honeyed leaf confused. "Clara, do you know anything about this? Mrs. Pembroke said you would." Clara explained the travelling star. Lily looked puzzled. "But I didn't know Margaret Finch. I wasn't even living here when she was alive. Why would the star come to me?" "Perhaps whoever is moving it sees a connection," Clara suggested. "Margaret taught music, helped people find their voices, encouraged them to share their gifts. You've done something similar with your baking. You found your voice again after losing it, and now you share your gifts with the village." Lily considered this. "I never thought of it that way. But yes, I suppose there are parallels. Building something creative, finding the courage to share it, becoming part of the community through your art." She looked at the star with new appreciation. "It's beautiful. I'll treasure having it for the day." Saturday, the star made 2 stops. First at Pages and Stories bookshop, where Emma found it with a new piece of sheet music, another rare carol. Then, by evening, it had moved to old Tom Fletcher's cottage. Tom brought it to the honeyed leaf Sunday morning after church. "Look what I found on my doorstep last night," he said. "Margaret's star. Haven't seen this in years. She used to bring it to choir practice, set it where we could all see it while we sang. She said it reminded her that we were all making something beautiful together, all our voices creating light in the darkness." "That's lovely," Clara said. "Did she teach you to sing?" "She did. I was a terrible singer as a boy, couldn't hold a tune at all. Margaret worked with me patiently, found the right range for my voice, taught me to listen and blend. By the time I was 16, I was singing bass in the church choir. I sang for 50 years because of her. Only stopped when my hearing got too bad. She gave me that gift, the joy of making music with others." He looked at the star with obvious affection. "Whoever is moving this through the village, they're doing a good thing, reminding us all of what Margaret gave us." By Sunday evening, the village was abuzz with talk of the travelling star. It had visited 7 locations in 1 week. Each person who received it had been touched by Margaret in some way, or represented something she had valued. Each had been given a piece of rare sheet music from Margaret's collection, and each had been asked to keep the star for a day before passing it on. But who was orchestrating this, and how many more stops would there be? Clara had a feeling this was building towards something, that the travelling star had a purpose beyond simply reminding people of Margaret. But what? Chapter 2. Discovering the Pattern. Monday of the 2nd week of December brought something new. The star appeared at Dr. Matthews' surgery with a note that was slightly different. "Dr. Matthews, Margaret taught your daughter Helen to sing. This carol was Helen's favourite. Perhaps she'd like to sing it at the Christmas service. The star will travel on, but the music is yours to keep." Dr. Matthews brought the note and music to the honeyed leaf at lunch. "I'm thoroughly confused," he admitted. "Helen is living in Edinburgh now. She hasn't been back to Willowbrook in 2 years. How would whoever is moving this star know about her connection to Margaret?" "What was their connection?" Clara asked. Helen struggled with severe shyness as a child, barely spoke in school, terrified of attention. But Margaret discovered she could sing, had a beautiful voice. Margaret worked with her privately, built up her confidence. By the time Helen was 12, she was singing solos in the church choir. That confidence carried into other areas. Helen became a teacher herself, works with children with special needs. She credits Margaret with changing her life, with showing her she had something valuable to offer. Dr. Matthews looked at the sheet music. This carol, Helen did love it. She sang it as a solo when she was 14. It was the first time she sang in front of the whole village without fear. "Are you going to contact her?" Clara asked. "I am. I'll send her the music. Perhaps she can come home for Christmas and sing it at the service. I think she'd like that, honouring Margaret this way." After Dr. Matthews left, Clara thought about the pattern. The star was visiting people Margaret had taught or touched. Each received sheet music connected to their personal history with Margaret, and now, at least in Dr. Matthews's case, they were being encouraged to perform the carol, to share Margaret's music again. Was that the purpose? To collect people willing to perform these rare carols, to recreate Margaret's musical legacy. Tuesday, the star appeared at the village hall with another note. This one was addressed to James Thornton, who had been the church organist for 30 years before retiring. The note asked if he would be willing to play the carol at the Christmas service. James, now in his 70s, came to the honeyed leaf that afternoon. "I'm quite moved by this," he told Clara. "Margaret and I worked together for decades. She'd find these rare carols, these beautiful forgotten pieces, and I'd arrange them for organ. We'd perform them together, her directing the choir, me playing. It was one of the great joys of my life, that collaboration." "Would you play this carol?" Clara asked. "I would be honoured, though I haven't played publicly in several years. My arthritis makes it difficult, but for Margaret, I'll manage." He looked at the star fondly. "She made that star the year I started as organist. She told me it represented what we were trying to do. Take something simple, wood and glass and paint, and turn it into something that catches light and brings beauty. That's what music does, takes breath and sound and turns it into something transcendent." Wednesday, the pattern became even clearer. The star visited 3 different homes, each belonging to former choir members. Each received a different piece of sheet music, and a note asking if they would consider singing their part at the Christmas service. By evening, word had spread. The travelling star wasn't just a memorial. It was an invitation. Someone was gathering Margaret's former students and asking them to perform her rare carols one more time. Thursday afternoon, Reverend Peters came to the honeyed leaf looking thoughtful. "Clara, I've been contacted by 7 different people in the last few days, all former members of Margaret's choir, all asking if they can perform carols at the Christmas Eve service. Apparently they've all received sheet music through this travelling star mystery. I think that's exactly what whoever is orchestrating this wants," Clara said. "They're gathering people Margaret taught, asking them to perform her favourite carols, to bring her musical legacy back to life for one more Christmas." "It's beautiful," Reverend Peters said, "and ambitious. Some of these carols are quite complex. But if I have 7 people willing to sing, plus James willing to play organ, we could do it. We could have a special section of the service dedicated to Margaret, performing the music she loved." "I think she would be so pleased," Clara said. Friday brought the star to Sophie's cottage. Sophie had never mentioned knowing Margaret, so this surprised Clara. But when Sophie came to the shop, she explained. "Margaret was my mother's best friend. When my mother died 15 years ago, Margaret stepped in. She wasn't officially family, but she became like an aunt to me. She'd have me over for tea, we'd talk about my mother, she'd share memories. She helped me through my grief. I didn't realise," Clara said gently. "She was a special person. Her gift wasn't just music, it was seeing people, understanding what they needed. She knew I needed connection to my mother, needed someone who remembered her. So she gave me that." Sophie looked at the sheet music she'd received. "This carol, my mother loved it. Margaret used to say it was written the year my mother was born, 1952. She taught my mother to sing it when she was young. Now she's asking me to learn it, to carry on that tradition." "Will you sing it at the service?" Clara asked. "I will, for my mother and for Margaret. It feels right." By the end of the second week, the star had visited 15 locations. 15 people had received sheet music and invitations to participate in the Christmas service. And still, no one knew who was orchestrating all of this. The mystery deepened when Mrs. Pembroke came to Clara with an observation. "I've been thinking about all the places the star has visited," Mrs. Pembroke said. "And I've realised something. Whoever is moving it has to be someone who knows the village intimately, knows everyone's connections to Margaret, knows their addresses, knows their schedules well enough to deliver the star without being seen." "That's a fairly small group of people," Clara agreed. "Long-time residents who are close to Margaret, who would have access to her sheet music collection, who would care enough to do all this." "I've made a list," Mrs. Pembroke said, producing a piece of paper. "There are perhaps 10 people it could be." Clara looked at the list, all elderly residents, all people who had known Margaret for decades. "Should we ask them directly?" "I'm not sure," Mrs. Pembroke said. "Part of me wants to know, but part of me thinks the anonymity is important. Whoever is doing this wants the focus on Margaret, not on themselves. Perhaps we should respect that." Clara agreed. "Let's wait. Perhaps they'll reveal themselves when they're ready, or perhaps the mystery is part of the gift. Saturday brought an unexpected development. The star appeared at the honeyed leaf again, but this time with a different note. Thank you for being the starting point of this journey. The star will visit 5 more locations this coming week, then return here on Friday, December 20th. On that day, there will be a final message. Thank you for honouring Margaret's memory. So there were 5 more stops planned, and then the star would return to Clara. And on December 20th, there would be some kind of revelation. Clara felt both anticipation and sadness. This beautiful mystery was approaching its conclusion. The travelling star had brought the village together, had reminded everyone of Margaret's impact, had created something meaningful. It would be sad when it ended, even as Clara looked forward to understanding it fully. Chapter 3. The Final Visits. Monday of the 3rd week of December, the star visited Anne Winter's cottage. Anne, Lily's grandmother, was surprised. She'd known Margaret slightly, but hadn't been particularly close to her. The note explained, Margaret taught at the village school for 40 years. Every child in Willowbrook during that time learned to sing from her. You were one of those children, Anne. Margaret helped shape who you became. This carol is from your school days, 1948. Perhaps you remember it. Anne brought the music to the honeyed leaf, amazed. I do remember this. We sang it in the Christmas pageant when I was 8 years old. I haven't thought about it in 70 years. But now that I see the music, I can hear Margaret's voice teaching us the parts, her patience with us. She made even us little ones feel like real singers, like we were creating something important. Will you sing it at the service? Clara asked. Oh, I don't think I could. My voice isn't what it was. But I'll come to the service and listen. I'll remember being 8 years old, singing with my classmates, feeling the magic of music for the first time. Margaret gave me that. Tuesday, the star visited the Chen family at the grocery. Mr. and Mrs. Chen had immigrated to Willowbrook 20 years ago. They'd never met Margaret, who was already retired and quite elderly by then. But the note explained. Margaret believed music transcends language and culture. She worked with immigrant families, teaching their children English through songs. Your nephew David benefited from her volunteer work. This carol is from 1902, written by an immigrant to celebrate finding home. Mrs. Chen was moved to tears. We never knew who helped David so much. When we first came here, he struggled with English, was shy and withdrawn. Someone worked with him at the church, teaching him songs. He learned English through music. We never knew it was Margaret Finch. She never told us her name. That was like her, Clara said. She didn't do things for recognition. She did them because she believed in the power of music to connect people, to help them find their voice. Wednesday, the star appeared at the village school again, but this time in a different location. Not the music room, but the headmaster's office. Robert Harrison, who had been headmaster for 15 years, found it with a note. Margaret taught here for 40 years, shaping thousands of young lives. She believed education should include beauty, creativity, and joy. Thank you for continuing that vision. This carol celebrates teachers and their legacy. Harrison came to the honeyed leaf at lunch, clearly touched. I never met Margaret, but I've heard about her constantly since I took this position. She's a legend in the school. Teachers who worked with her still talk about her methods, her passion, her dedication. I've tried to maintain the music program she built. This note, acknowledging that I'm continuing her work, means more than I can say. It's hard being headmaster, trying to honour tradition while moving forward. This feels like a blessing from the past. Thursday, the star visited the nursing home on the edge of the village. It appeared in the common room with a note addressed to all the residents. Many of you knew Margaret Finch. Some of you sang with her. Some had children she taught. Some simply remember her as part of Willowbrook's fabric. This carol is for all of you, in gratitude for your memories and your years of contributing to this community. The nursing home staff brought the star and note to show Clara. Several of our residents have been talking about Margaret since the star appeared, the activities director explained. They've been sharing memories, singing old songs together. It's been wonderful to watch. Music has a way of reaching people, even those with dementia. Several of our residents who rarely speak have been humming these old carols. That would make Margaret so happy, Clara said. She believed music was healing, that it connected us to our memories and to each other. Friday, December 20th arrived, the final stop for the travelling star. Clara arrived at the honeyed leaf to find the star back on her doorstep, just as it had been nearly 3 weeks ago. But this time, the box also contained a letter. A long letter, carefully handwritten. Clara brought everything inside, made tea and sat down to read. The letter began. Dear Clara and dear Willowbrook, thank you for participating in this journey. Thank you for honouring Margaret Finch and for bringing her music back to life. My name is Peter Finch. I am Margaret's nephew. She raised me after my parents died when I was 8 years old. She became my mother in every way that mattered. Margaret died last spring, and I wasn't ready to let her go. I wasn't ready for the village to forget her, to forget what she gave to so many people over so many years. Margaret left me her cottage and all her possessions, including her Christmas star, which she'd made with her own hands 68 years ago, including her collection of rare carols, gathered over a lifetime of searching for beautiful, forgotten music. I've been living in her cottage since she died, trying to decide what to do. Then I had an idea. What if I could give the village one more gift from Margaret? What if I could bring people together one more time through her music? So I planned this journey. The travelling star, visiting people and places Margaret loved, carrying her music with it, inviting people to perform. I know the village wondered who was moving the star. I'm sorry for the secrecy, but I wanted the focus on Margaret, not on me. I'm no one special, just someone who loved her and wanted to honour her memory. The letter continued. The Christmas Eve service will feature 12 of Margaret's favourite rare carols. 20 people have agreed to sing or play. Some are elderly former students, some are current village members carrying on her legacy. Together, they represent 70 years of Margaret's teaching and influence. The performance will be dedicated to her memory. I hope you'll all attend. After the service, I'll be leaving Willowbrook. I've accepted a teaching position abroad, music education in underserved communities. It's what Margaret would have wanted me to do, to carry forward her belief that everyone deserves access to music and beauty. But I'll leave the star with you, Clara. Margaret's cottage is being sold, and most of her things will be distributed. But the star should stay in Willowbrook, should continue to bring people together. I'm asking you to keep it at the honeyed leaf, to display it every Christmas, to let it remind the village of Margaret and what she built. Thank you for creating a space where community gathers, where kindness is practiced, where people matter. You're continuing work that Margaret started, and I know she would be grateful for that. With deep appreciation, Peter Finch. Clara read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Peter Finch, Margaret's nephew, raised by her, now carrying forward her legacy by teaching music to others. He'd orchestrated this entire beautiful mystery to honour his aunt and bring the village together. And he was trusting Clara with Margaret's precious star, asking her to keep it as a permanent memorial. She immediately called Mrs. Pembroke, Eleanor and Beatrice. They needed to know. Within an hour, all 3 were at the honeyed leaf, reading Peter's letter, wiping their eyes. We should find him, Mrs. Pembroke said. Thank him properly. Let him know how much this has meant. He's staying at Margaret's cottage, Eleanor said. I'll find the address. By late afternoon, Clara, Mrs. Pembroke, Eleanor and Beatrice were standing at Margaret's cottage door. It was a small, neat house on a quiet street, with a garden that even in winter looked cared for. Clara knocked. The door opened to reveal a man in his mid-50s, with kind eyes and greying hair. Yes? Peter Finch? Clara asked. I'm Clara Whitmore. We received your letter. Peter's face showed surprise, then a smile. I didn't expect anyone to come. Please come in. They entered the cottage. It was filled with music. Sheet music in stacks, instruments in corners, photographs of choirs and performances on every wall. This was Margaret's world, Peter said softly. Music and teaching and community. She poured everything into it. And you've honoured that beautifully, Mrs. Pembroke said. The travelling star, the way you've brought people together. It's been extraordinary. Peter looked embarrassed. I just wanted people to remember her, to understand what she gave. They do, Eleanor assured him. Everyone has been sharing stories, remembering moments with Margaret. You've created something wonderful. And the Christmas service, Beatrice added. 20 people performing her favourite carols. It's a tremendous gift. They talked for over an hour. Peter shared stories about growing up with Margaret, about how she'd saved him after his parents' deaths, how she'd taught him to find solace and joy in music, how she'd encouraged him to become a teacher, to pass forward what she'd given him. She was the best person I've ever known, Peter said simply. And now you're carrying forward her work, Clara said, teaching music in communities that need it. She would be so proud. I hope so, Peter said. It's what she would have done. Before they left, Clara asked one more question. The Christmas service is in 4 days. Will you be there? Peter hesitated. I wasn't planning to. I thought I'd slip away quietly, let the focus stay on Margaret. But you should be there, Mrs. Pembroke said firmly. You've brought all this together. The people performing deserve to thank you. The village deserves to know who gave them this gift. Peter looked uncertain, but finally nodded. All right, I'll come for Margaret. Chapter 4. Preparation. The 4 days before Christmas Eve were filled with preparation. Reverend Peters organised rehearsals for the carol singers. James Thornton practised the organ arrangements despite his arthritis. 20 performers worked on their parts, some singing alone, some in small groups. The church filled with beautiful, rare music that hadn't been heard in Willowbrook for decades. Clara prepared the honeyed leaf for a special Christmas Eve tea after the service. She wanted to host everyone who had been part of the travelling star journey, to celebrate together, to thank Peter properly. Lily offered to provide pastries. Mrs. Pembroke organised decorations. Eleanor created a display about Margaret's life and teaching career. On December 23rd, something unexpected happened. Helen Matthews arrived from Edinburgh. Dr. Matthews brought her to the honeyed leaf, beaming with pride. She got the music I sent her and decided to come home for Christmas. She wants to sing the carol at the service tomorrow night. Helen, now in her 30s, was quiet and gentle. I wouldn't have missed this, she told Clara. Margaret changed my life. She saw something in me when I couldn't see it myself. She gave me confidence when I had none. Singing her carol, honouring her memory, is the least I can do. Throughout the day, performers stopped by the honeyed leaf to share their excitement and nervousness. Some hadn't sung publicly in years. Some were attempting complex harmonies. All were doing it for Margaret, wanting to honour her, wanting to bring her music to life one more time. She made us all believe we could create beauty, one elderly woman said. Tomorrow night, we'll prove she was right. Christmas Eve morning dawned clear and cold, perfect winter weather. Clara decorated the honeyed leaf with extra care, hanging Margaret's star in the window where everyone could see it. The star caught the morning light, casting rainbow reflections through the shop. It seemed to glow with purpose, ready for its final evening. Throughout the day, villagers stopped by to see the star one last time before the service, to share their memories of Margaret, to express their anticipation for the evening. The sense of community, of shared purpose, was palpable. This wasn't just a Christmas service, it was a celebration of one woman's legacy and the impact she'd had on generations. At 4 o'clock, Peter Finch came to the honeyed leaf. I wanted to see the star one more time before tonight, he said, and to thank you for agreeing to keep it here. Clara made tea, and they sat together by the window, looking at the star. Tell me about the night she made it, Clara said gently. Peter smiled, lost in memory. It was December 1956. I'd been living with her for a year, still grieving my parents. She wanted to make Christmas special, to create new traditions. She gathered materials, glass and paint and wire, and we worked on it together. She did most of the work, but she let me help. She said we were making something that would outlast us, something that would catch light and bring beauty for years to come. That night, working on the star with her, I felt hope for the first time since my parents died. I felt like maybe life could be good again. He wiped his eyes. She gave me that, hope and light and purpose. And now you're giving that to others, Clara said. Through teaching, through music, through this beautiful tribute. You've become what she made you. I hope so, Peter said. That's all I want, to be worthy of what she gave me. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the star sparkle in the afternoon light. Finally, Peter stood. "I should go. I need to prepare for tonight. But thank you, Clara, for everything, for understanding what I was trying to do, for honouring Margaret." "Thank you for trusting us with her memory," Clara replied, "and for the gift of the star. It will always have a home here." Chapter 5. The Christmas Eve Service. At 6 o'clock, St Mary's Church began to fill. Word of the special carol service had spread throughout Willowbrook and beyond. People came who hadn't been to church in years, drawn by the promise of rare music and the tribute to Margaret Finch. The church was decorated beautifully, with candles and evergreen, creating a warm, glowing atmosphere. Clara arrived early and found a seat near the front. Mrs Pembroke, Eleanor and Beatrice joined her. Around them, the church continued to fill. Old students of Margaret's, their children and grandchildren, long-time villagers, newcomers who had heard the story. By 6:30, every seat was taken and people stood in the back. Peter Finch sat in the front row, looking nervous but determined. The 20 performers gathered near the choir stalls, some in their 80s, some middle-aged, some young. Helen Matthews stood among them, quietly reviewing her music. James Thornton sat at the organ, his arthritic hands resting on the keys ready. Reverend Peters began the service with a welcome. "Tonight is special," he said. "We gather not just to celebrate Christmas, but to celebrate Margaret Finch, a woman who gave 70 years of her life to this village through music and teaching. What you'll hear tonight are rare carols from Margaret's personal collection, performed by people she taught. This service has been orchestrated by Margaret's nephew, Peter Finch, as a tribute to his aunt. We're grateful to him for bringing us together this way, for reminding us of what Margaret gave us all." He gestured to Peter, who stood briefly and nodded, then sat quickly, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. The service proceeded with traditional readings and prayers. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. James Thornton's hands moved to the organ keys. The first notes of Star of Wonder, Star of Light filled the church. The sound was ethereal, beautiful, complex. Then voices joined in. Mrs Pembroke and 5 other elderly voices, blending in harmonies they'd learned 70 years ago. The carol was unlike anything most people had heard. Not a familiar Christmas tune, but something older, richer, filled with longing and hope. The words spoke of searching for light in darkness, of finding wonder in unexpected places. When it ended, there was a moment of silence, then soft applause. Tears ran down many faces. The second carol featured Helen Matthews singing solo. Her voice, clear and strong, filled the church. The carol she sang was about finding courage, about discovering your own light. It was impossible not to think about Helen's own story, the shy child who Margaret had helped become confident, who now taught children with special needs, passing forward what she'd received. One by one, or in small groups, the performers offered their carols, each one different, each one beautiful, each one carrying history and meaning. Between carols, Reverend Peters shared brief stories about Margaret, about how she'd taught for 40 years without missing a day unless absolutely necessary, how she'd worked with every child who wanted to learn, regardless of talent, how she'd collected these rare carols from libraries and archives, preserving music that might otherwise have been lost, how she'd believed music was a gift meant to be shared. The 10th carol was performed by Anne Winters, Lily's grandmother. Her voice was thin with age, but she sang with clear emotion, remembering being 8 years old, learning this carol from Margaret. Lily watched her grandmother with tears streaming down her face. The 11th carol was performed by all 20 singers together, a complex, soaring piece with multiple harmonies, challenging even for experienced singers. But they managed it, their voices weaving together, creating something transcendent. The church seemed to hold its breath, caught in the beauty of the moment. Finally, the 12th and last carol. James Thornton played an introduction. Then Peter Finch stood. He walked to the front of the church, stood beside the organ and began to sing. His voice was trained, professional, full and rich. He sang a carol about legacy, about passing gifts from one generation to the next, about light that continues even after the source is gone. He sang it for Margaret, for the aunt who had raised him, who had given him everything, who had taught him that love and music could heal even the deepest grief. As he sang, people throughout the church wept openly. This was more than a carol. It was a love letter, a thank you, a goodbye. When the last note faded, there was absolute silence. Then, spontaneously, everyone stood. Not for applause, but as a gesture of respect and gratitude. For Margaret, for Peter, for the performers, for the gift of this evening. Peter stood at the front, tears streaming down his face, and nodded his thanks. Reverend Peters concluded the service with a brief blessing. May we all carry forward what Margaret gave us. May we see the music in others. May we help people find their voices. May we create beauty together, in her memory and in celebration of all she was. Amen. As people filed out of the church, many stopped to thank Peter, to share their memories of Margaret, to express their gratitude. He stood patiently, listening to each person, thanking them for coming, for performing, for remembering. Clara watched him and saw Margaret's kindness reflected in his attention to each person, his genuine interest in their stories. Outside, snow had begun to fall gently. The village looked magical under the streetlights. Clara gathered people for the gathering at the Honeyed Leaf. Everyone who was part of the Travelling Star journey is invited for tea and celebration. Please come. Within 30 minutes, the Honeyed Leaf was full. The 20 performers, Peter, Reverend Peters, Dr. Matthews and Helen, the Chen family, the nursing home activities director, Sarah Chen, the music teacher, everyone who had received the Travelling Star. Clara had prepared her special Christmas tea blend, and Lily had outdone herself with pastries. The shop glowed with warmth and light, and in the window, in its place of honour, Margaret's star sparkled. Peter stood near the star, surrounded by people, answering questions about Margaret, sharing stories, looking at old photographs people had brought. Helen Matthews approached him. "Thank you," she said simply, "for bringing me home, for giving me the chance to honour Margaret. Singing tonight, I felt like I was that shy 12-year-old again, but stronger now, Margaret's gift still working in my life." "She would be so proud of you," Peter said, "of what you've become, of what you're doing for other children. You're her legacy, Helen, as real as any carol." Throughout the evening, people shared their memories, how Margaret had taught them to sing, to listen, to believe in themselves, how she'd made music accessible to everyone, how she'd collected rare carols because she believed beautiful things shouldn't be lost, how she'd given decades of her life to the village without ever seeking recognition or reward. "She just loved what she did," old Tom Fletcher said. "Loved music, loved teaching, loved seeing people grow. That was enough for her, that was everything." Around 9 o'clock, Peter asked for everyone's attention. "I want to thank all of you," he said, "for participating in this journey, for performing tonight, for keeping Margaret's memory alive. I'm leaving Willowbrook tomorrow, but I'm leaving knowing that what Margaret built continues, that her music lives on through all of you. The star will stay here at the Honeyed Leaf, where Clara has promised to display it every Christmas. I hope you'll visit it, remember Margaret, and remember what she taught us all. That everyone has a voice, that music connects us, that beauty shared is beauty multiplied. Thank you for everything." Mrs. Pembroke stood. "Peter, before you leave, we have something for you." She produced a large album, beautifully bound. "We've been collecting memories of Margaret from everyone in the village. Stories, photographs, letters. This is for you to take with you, so you'll always have these memories, so you'll know how much she mattered." Peter accepted the album with shaking hands. He opened it and began to page through. Photographs of Margaret at various ages, with students, with choirs, at performances, stories written by dozens of people about how she'd affected their lives, copies of old concert programmes, sheet music with her notes in the margins, a comprehensive record of a life well lived. "This is extraordinary," Peter said, his voice breaking. "Thank you. I'll treasure this always." As the evening drew toward 10 o'clock, people began to leave. Each person stopped to thank Clara for hosting, to admire the star one more time, to say goodbye to Peter. By 10:30, only a few remained. Clara, Mrs. Pembroke, Eleanor, Beatrice and Peter. They sat together by the fire, drinking the last of the tea, watching the star sparkle in the window. "Tonight was perfect," Peter said. "Everything I hoped for and more. Margaret would have been so happy." "She would be proud of you," Eleanor said, "for carrying forward her work, for honouring her this way." "I just hope I can live up to what she gave me," Peter said. "She saved my life, gave me purpose, taught me that love and music could heal anything. I want to give that to others." "You will," Clara said with certainty. "You already are." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the fire crackling, the star glowing, the shop filled with the contentment that comes after something meaningful has been completed. Finally, Peter stood. "I should go. Early train tomorrow. But thank you, all of you, for everything. For understanding what I was trying to do, for making it better than I imagined." They walked him to the door. He paused at the threshold and looked back at the star in the window. "Take care of it," he said to Clara. "Let it remind people that one person's gifts can light up a whole community. That kindness and beauty matter. That music is magic." "I will," Clara promised. "Every Christmas, Margaret's star will shine here, and people will remember." Peter nodded, then stepped out into the snowy night. They watched him walk away down the quiet street until he disappeared around a corner. "He's a good man," Mrs. Pembroke said. "Margaret raised him well." "He'll do wonderful things," Eleanor agreed. "He'll carry her legacy to places she never went, but with her spirit guiding him." After everyone left, Clara sat alone in the shop for a while. She looked at the star, thinking about Margaret Finch, a woman who had dedicated her life to teaching music, to helping people find their voices, who had collected rare carols so they wouldn't be lost, who had raised her nephew with love after tragedy, who had touched hundreds of lives over 7 decades, and who was remembered now with such love and gratitude. The travelling star had done its work. It had brought people together, reminded them of what mattered, created a moment of beauty and connection. Now it would stay here, in this window shining every Christmas. A permanent memorial to Margaret, and to the idea that one person's dedication and kindness could echo through generations. Clara finally turned off the lights and went upstairs, leaving only the star glowing in the window. A beacon of light in the darkness, just as Margaret had intended. Christmas morning arrived with bright sunshine and fresh snow. Clara woke feeling peaceful and grateful. She came downstairs and saw the star catching the morning light, throwing rainbows around the shop. She made tea and sat watching it, thinking about the previous night, about the music, the memories, the community that had gathered. Throughout the day, people stopped by to look at the star again, to talk about the service, to share more memories of Margaret. Several people brought photographs to add to the display Eleanor was creating. By afternoon, there was a comprehensive memorial to Margaret Finch at the Honeyed Leaf. Her life, her work, her impact, all documented and celebrated. In the days after Christmas, Clara received a letter from Peter. He'd arrived at his new teaching position, was settling in, was already working with students. "Thank you again for everything," he wrote. "For keeping the star, for honouring Margaret, for understanding what I was trying to create. I've been looking through the memory album, reading all the stories about how Margaret touched lives. It's overwhelming and beautiful. She would be so pleased. I'm teaching now in a community that has little access to music education. The children here remind me of my young self, hungry for something beautiful, needing someone to see their potential. I'll be Margaret for them. I'll give them what she gave me. Every time I teach, I think of her. Every time I help a shy child find their voice, I'm continuing her work. The star may be in Willowbrook, but Margaret's light shines here too, through me. Thank you for helping me honour her. Thank you for keeping her memory alive. With gratitude always, Peter." Clara shared the letter with Mrs. Pembroke, Eleanor and Beatrice. They sat together at the Honeyed Leaf, looking at the star, thinking about Margaret and Peter, about legacy and memory. "This is what matters," Mrs. Pembroke said. "Not fame or fortune, but the lives we touch, the kindness we show, the gifts we pass forward." Margaret understood that. She lived it every day for 70 years. "And now Peter is living it," Eleanor added. "In a different place, with different students, but carrying forward what she gave him." "And we're living it too," Beatrice said. "By remembering, by honouring, by keeping her story alive. We're all part of the chain." As winter deepened and January arrived, the star remained in the window of the honeyed leaf. People grew accustomed to seeing it there, took comfort from its presence. It became part of the village, a reminder of Margaret, a symbol of community and care. Children asked about it, and their parents told them Margaret's story. About the teacher who had believed everyone could sing, who had collected rare music, who had dedicated her life to helping people find their voices. The story was passed to a new generation, keeping Margaret's memory alive. In February, Sarah Chen, the young music teacher, came to the honeyed leaf. "I wanted to tell you something," she said. "I've been thinking about Margaret, about the travelling star, about what Peter said. I've decided to start collecting rare carols myself, to continue what Margaret began. I found several online, in archives. I'm going to teach them to the students, preserve them, pass them forward. It feels like the right way to honour her." Clara felt tears prick her eyes. "That's beautiful, Sarah. Margaret would be so pleased. I never met her, but I feel connected to her now, like she's still teaching me, still guiding me. The star in your window, it reminds me every day of what I'm trying to do, of the legacy I want to build." Throughout the year, the star stayed in the window. In spring, when Clara took down the Christmas decorations, she left the star up. It seemed right. It wasn't just a Christmas ornament anymore. It was a memorial, a reminder, a beacon. People had grown to love seeing it there. It had become part of the honeyed leaf's identity. In summer, Eleanor completed the comprehensive memorial about Margaret. It included photographs, stories, copies of concert programmes, information about the rare carols she'd collected, testimonials from hundreds of former students. The memorial was donated to the village library and the school, ensuring Margaret's story would be preserved. In autumn, Peter wrote again. He was thriving in his teaching position, had started a children's choir, was working with students who had never had access to music education before. "I think of Margaret every day," he wrote. "I hear her voice in my head, guiding me, encouraging me. The star may be thousands of miles away, but I carry her light with me." And as December returned and Christmas approached once again, the star took on new meaning. It had been a year since the travelling star had made its journey through Willowbrook. A year since Peter had orchestrated that beautiful tribute. A year since the community had gathered to honour Margaret through music. On the first Sunday of Advent, Reverend Peters announced that the church would perform one of Margaret's rare carols at each Christmas service, continuing the tradition Peter had started. Sarah Chen was working with the school choir to learn the carols. The nursing home residents were singing them at their weekly music sessions. Margaret's music lived on. On Christmas Eve, exactly 1 year after the special service, the honeyed leaf held a small gathering. Everyone who had been part of the travelling star journey came together again, to remember, to celebrate, to honour Margaret. They shared tea and pastries and stories. They sang one of Margaret's carols together, imperfectly but with joy, and they stood at the window, looking at the star. Each person remembering their connection to Margaret, their part in her legacy. "She's still teaching us," Helen Matthews said softly. "Still showing us what matters, still bringing us together." "She always will," Clara agreed. "As long as we remember, as long as we pass forward what she gave us." That night, after everyone had gone, Clara sat alone with the star. She thought about the journey it had taken. Created by Margaret in 1956, cherished for 68 years, carried through the village by Peter as a tribute, now resting here permanently as a memorial and beacon. The star had witnessed so much, had seen generations of students learn to sing, had topped Margaret's Christmas tree for decades, had brought a grieving 8-year-old boy hope and light, had travelled through Willowbrook gathering people together. And now it would continue its work, shining in this window, reminding everyone who saw it of what one person's dedication and kindness could create. Clara touched the star gently, reverently. "Thank you, Margaret," she whispered, "for what you built, for what you gave, for showing us all that music and teaching and kindness matter. We'll remember. We promise." The star sparkled in response, catching light, throwing rainbows, doing what it had always done, creating beauty, bringing hope, shining in the darkness, just as Margaret Finch had done for 70 years. Thank you for visiting Willowbrook tonight and sharing Margaret's story. Sometimes the greatest legacies are built quietly, through daily acts of kindness and dedication. Sometimes one person's light can illuminate an entire community for generations. May you carry that warmth with you into sleep, knowing that what you give to the world matters, that your gifts create ripples that extend far beyond what you can see. Rest well, dear friend. Until we meet again at the Honeyed Leaf. Good night.